Hi, welcome to this week's bonus clip. We recorded this as part of our wrap pod following the Leinster v Munster match, which you'll find on Apple, Spotify, and all the other usual places. Now, we've all had a moan about the Champions Cup format, and we can keep doing so until the cows come home, but it still won't change our assignment when it comes to Leinster's search for that elusive fifth star. The reality is we're in Pool 4 with 5 other teams, and we're only to play 4 of them while trying to position ourselves to first qualify for the knockouts by finishing in the top 4, but ideally by also doing so in such a way as to get as much home advantage as possible. So starting with yourself, Tom, how are we looking against our first 2 opponents, La Rochelle and Sale Sharks?
Well, if anyone's listening to this and they want to go over to the main pod and how I was given the 2 worst quarters of the game to analyse, and you've now double down by giving me the trigger word of talking about La Rochelle, which I haven't quite got over with. Look, yeah, it's interesting. It's funny, as a Leinster fan now, you're sort of keeping half one eye on La Rochelle and how they're going in the season. And
they're actually playing as we speak.
Yeah, taking any glimpse of hope you can. They've had an indifferent start to the season, but as they start to filter in some of the more internationals, they're starting to get a bit of form and had some decent wins. Look, it's going to be
latest score: Racing 24, La Rochelle 3.
Well, I'm delighted your Lancaster might get on the phone then after the game and talk to Leo, saying, what did you do the weekend? I'm not sure what sort of team La Rochelle have picked for this game, but normally if it's France, they've probably picked the weekend team for an away game. But yeah, look, it's not going to be easy down La Rochelle. They're going to love the fact that we're back down there, and they have a bit of a hood over us. There's no point in saying otherwise, and it's going to be a tricky game. It's not the game. If we get anything down there and get a win, it would be a massive bonus. It would set us up nicely, but it's not the game we're going to win or lose to stop us getting to the next round. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Leinster, now following on from the games we've seen, continue to play that aggressive style around the breakdown and give La Rochelle something different to think about. And that'll be the first big. I know we have to play Connacht first, but that'll be the first real big proper test of this, maybe system. And Nienbar will be there a couple of weeks. We also play Sale. Sale's an interesting one. I think Sale's weapon, they've won the first 6 out of the first 7 games in the Premiership at the top of the moment. Again, they're a team that doesn't suffer as much with internationals going away. It will also be a very interesting test for Leinster. Leinster playing in the RDS, and it's funny enough, we switched the big Christmas game to the January, to welcome Stade Francais to the Aviva. But we decided to play Sale in the RDS. Sale is one of those teams that'll actually test this Leinster new defensive system and dogging us around the ruck, because they're a bit like Exeter from a few years ago. They've a few South Africans around that team, and they're quite dogged around the breakdown as well. They don't give a shit about winning games 11-9 like they did against the weekend against Bath. They're quite abrasive around the breakdown. So the first 2 games will definitely test the mettle, and will be great for Leinster to set them up for the rest of the season on this system, what's working and what's not working. But if we can get a win and a losing bonus point, we'd probably bite our hand off of that. I know it's a bit unusual to say that. Leinster tried to win as many games as we can, but I think if we can head into the second 2 games, which Nathan's going to discuss, I think with a win and maybe a losing 1 point, anything more than that, then La Rochelle would be fantastic. Knowing our luck, when it means nothing, when I mean nothing inverted commas, we probably go beat them down there, as opposed to the last 2 finals and 1 semi-final where we've lost. But yeah, looking forward to the Champions Cup back. It is, it's another format. It's another year. I think that's about the strap line for the Heineken Cup, or the Champions Cup as we call it. No more Heineken. But yeah, can't wait. We're getting into the grunty end of the part of the season. Really starts now from sort of Munster game the weekend, and Galway, and then on to the Champions Cup. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I suppose one of the biggest departures of this new feature, this new format, is that it's not that we're used to, even with the way we just changed from, we'd still play teams home and away, but now that's gone. We're only getting 1 crack at these teams, which sort of makes it more of almost a cup element with each team that comes along. So having played La Rochelle and Sale in December, after Christmas, we'll have an idea of how the pools are sitting going through the Christmas period, and then in January we're going to play Stade Francais and Leicester Tigers, Nathan.
Yeah, and Stade Francais is an interesting one, because for a while they've kind of slipped into obscurity, I think, unless you're a devout top 14 watcher in that. I think they played Connacht a couple of years ago, but they would have lost at home to Connacht, which I think at towards the back end when Connacht were a bit battered towards the back end of the pool stages, and obviously Connacht don't have the strongest depth of squad. They've always had a decent first 15, so you'd look in that and you'd go, okay, they kind of lost a little bit of their European pedigree, not just with that result, but they're playing reasonably well. I mean, nobody's kind of keeping up with the big top 14 shock of Pau at the minute. They're kind of runaway leaders, which is bizarre sitting at the. But I think Stade Francais are fifth, which I think is they'll be very happy with that. So look, it's not a case of coming up against a French powerhouse that's kind of been reborn, so to speak, but they've had some shrewd recruitment. They got Brad Weber and Joe Marchant in there in that back line, and obviously they've still got McAloo, even though there were some reports that he was going to be joining Dupont over with the Sevens, so that hasn't happened yet. As far as looking at their recent team sheets, so but again, we don't know if those reports are true. He probably won't be around come January time when Leinster play them. So they've got some dangerous players. There's no doubt about that. And Halafanua as well in the back row, and Paulo Emile, who a decent tight head. So they're a good side, but I wouldn't necessarily think Leinster would be overly concerned. I don't think, put it this way, I don't think they're as good as the Racing side that came over last year, wasn't it, that Leinster dealt with pretty comfortably in the Aviva. Leicester's the one that baffles me, because I've kind of kept an eye on their results, and they're struggling. They're in the bottom half of the Premiership, but I kind of figured they haven't been playing their frontliners, but they have. Bollard's been playing for them. The Ollie Cheston's been playing for them. Montoya's been playing for them. Dan Kelly's been playing for them. They signed Ollie Hassel-Collins from London Irish when they went belly up, and that was a really, really good signing. They just haven't clicked. They still have most of the really powerful, again, niggly side that asked questions of Leinster a couple of years ago in the knockouts over in Welford Road. They still have the bones of that side. They just haven't hit their straps yet this season. And obviously Leinster worked past them comfortably in the Aviva last year in a knockout game. And right now, based on current form, they haven't necessarily added any marquee players to that bar Hassel-Collins, and they're playing arguably worse now than they did then. Again, look, when those games come up, we're a few weeks down the line, things could have clicked. World Cup hangovers could have been worked past, but they've been disappointing, considering they still have the bones of a very good side, arguably on paper a better side than Stade Francais, but the form book would suggest otherwise.
Absolutely. Well, that just leaves the Stormers, which I'll have a quick look at here. And of course, the Stormers are actually the only URC team that Leinster have never beaten. So in some ways, it might seem like a blessing that this very contrived format means we avoid playing them in our pool. But that doesn't mean we can afford to ignore them either. They're easily the most successful of the four South African franchises since they joined up with the Northern Hemisphere Rugby. And they'll definitely be keen to improve on last year's first appearance in the Champions Cup, when the extra traveling seemed to take its toll as they fell heavily to Exeter in the quarterfinals. I'm pretty sure they'll have learned a lot from that experience, and they'll be extra determined to go further this time around. And their schedule is almost identical to ours, except for some reversed fixtures. For example, while Leinster must travel to La Rochelle, the Stormers actually host them in Cape Town a week later. So this means we'll need to get every point we can to stay ahead of them on the Pool 4 table. And even though they may have lost some of their marquee names from last season, like Stephen Kitchoff, they've always struck me as a more than the sum of their parts kind of team, with which John Dobson has playing to a system that works. So it's no surprise that the bookies have them as the most fancied South African side in the competition. I certainly wouldn't dream of ruling them out from being the first team to lift a trophy at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in, well, forever. And it's okay for me to say that because I'm a Spurs fan. So just to say that. But listen, we're going to leave it there. Right. That's it for a bonus cup this week. Many thanks to Tom and Nathan, and to yourselves for tuning in. As ever, please be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe wherever you can, and follow us on any or all of our social media channels.